Hello there, this is David from David Books and Comics, and I'm going to do an overview of Elric Saga Part 2. I finished Elric Saga Part 1, comprising of the first three novels, and these are all, again, following the Daw editions. So it was Elric of Melniboné, first published in 73, I believe, and then The Sailor on the Seas of Fate and Weird of the White Wolf. Elric Saga Part 2 features the next three Daw editions, and that's The Vanishing Tower. That's this one. And we have Bane of the Black Sword. And this one has a split spine. I have another version of this with the same cover, and it's a Daw book. But this is the PVO, the original, or the first Daw printing. Bane of the Black Sword, the fifth novel, and of course the climactic novel with the beautiful David Whalen cover. Nice near mint copy. That's Daw book number 264. All right, so this is Elric Saga Part 2. And we can just look and see, and you can see these are the three novels. And you have the publication date. So you see for the printing history, the Daw book editions from 77. And Michael Moorcock gave this explanation. So a version of this novel, re-edited without reference to the author, was published under the title Sleeping Sorceress by Lancer in 72. The text of this edition follows the English edition published by New English Library, first in 1970. So this is following the Daw edition, basically. June 1977. Bane of the Black Sword is a compilation of novellas. And you can see by the publication date 67, 70, and 77. And the Daw edition is from 1977, as you see here. And then Stormbringer, again, is comprised of three novellas. And the Daw edition was the one published in 1977. All right. So, Elric Saga Part 2 for the next three novels. So I've read the six first in order of publication, I would say, of the Elric Saga Part 2. What I didn't read is the what Moorcock considers chronologically the second novel between Elric of Melniboné and the Sailor on the Seas of Fate, that was published back in 1983, and that was called The Fortress of Pearl. Anyway, so in The Vanishing Tower, Elric, along with Moonglum, set out in pursuit of Thelebkarna, the sorcerer, and the motive for that pursuit is revenge. The story is one of the early Elric novellas from the 1960s, so it moves quickly, but it is written in a style that is true to Moorcock's personal philosophy. There continues to be a metaphoric quality to Elric's adventures. The early stories have a young adult feel, but Moorcock throughout doesn't seem to glorify violence. He actually makes violence, for lack of a better word, he makes violence look evil. Even though the description in the action scenes may seem quite graphic. Racker the Red Archer makes a reappearance in this fix-up novel, along with the mythic city of Tanalorn. Elric relies on his sword, Stormbringer, for life. It literally revivifies him. It gives him vitality, almost like a drug. And his ever loyal friends show up, and the fickle help of both the Lords of Chaos and the Lords of Law. And in both cases, they help, but in a kind of begrudging way. In Bane of the Black Sword, we reached the denouement of his confrontation with the sorcerer Telebkarna. And we are introduced to a character called Queen Yashana, whose motives are yet to be revealed. In this saga, part 2, the stories, or the novellas, flow easily one to another and from novel to novel. You almost get a sense that it was written in a kind of pulp novel style. Many of the pulp novelists, for instance, Dashiell Hammett and the early Street and Smith publications of the first novels of The Grey Seal, Frank L. Packard, you can tell there's their intent is to have the continuation, but with each section there is a definite conclusion. So you get the same sense in Moorcock's version of Elric, as published initially in his pulps, that pulp magazine, digest-sized pulp magazine called Science Fantasy. However, what you do notice in Bane of the Black Sword is different from the British Mayflower edition. I think only in the titling, but I can show you the edition that I have. So in the British Mayflower edition, this is the other version of Bane of the Black Sword. It basically follows the same text. But you see here the story While the Gods Laugh. And you see Dreaming City, of course, Stealer of Souls, Kings in Darkness, and Flamebringers, which all take part, all feature as part of the novel Bane of the Black Sword. But While the Gods Laugh, which listed is one of the stories, is out of chronological sequence because While the Gods Laugh appears in Weird of the White Wolf here. So this is the definitive chronology that Michael Moorcock chose for this continuity. But it's out of chronology here in this Grenada Mayflower edition. Beautiful cover, by the way. And it is a red copy, because this was the first copy that I read years ago when I first delved into the Elric stories. Let's see what to say more. So both the Saga in Part 2 and the Orion editions are according to Moorcock's chronology, and are, in my view, definitive. It is also in Part 2 that we meet another Elric love interest in Zarozinia. And if you know of Michael Moorcock, he has a special connection with several bands, Blue Oyster Cult for one, who did a homage song about Elric. I forget the name of the title. It wasn't called Stormbringer. Blackblade, I think it was called. And there's also the band Hawkwind. And Hawkwind has a very haunting version of Zarozinia that appears in one of their albums. And I think the album's called Chronicle of the Black Sword. So both Moonglum and Zarozinia play prominent roles in the climactic novel Stormbringer. And it's in Stormbringer that Elric faces one of his most vile enemy sorcerers, a guy named Jygreen Lern. And everything kind of comes into a climactic scenes. It's beautifully described, and as you're reading the last novella, the last two novellas, I would say, the story just races along at a very rapid pace. You're almost given no time to breathe, but you're really driven by the pace of the narrative. I think Moorcock never wants to glorify wars or violence. And I believe his philosophy is that we live in a chaotic and random universe. Nothing can be seen as predictable. Everything is just too random. There is only moments of love and friendship at significant times in our lives. And if I follow the flow of the Elric Saga, everything kind of comes to I don't want to say tragic, but a climactic end, I guess. Justice and law exist as an attempt to try to put right and fight against the chaos that a lot of that is the nature of human existence. It is what existence is, and it's a kind, to use the philosophical term, it's the ontological reality. So, having said all this, Moorcock, by his own admission, is simply trying to write a good story with which I thoroughly enjoy. And even though I may not agree with his world and life view, his Weltanschauung, it doesn't matter because Moorcock is an excellent writer, and the story flows easily as a story. The energy, the pacing of the novels are what I find most engaging. I think his other novels, the last novel that he wrote, and I'll show it to you, follows that kind of spirit. And this is the last novel he wrote. It's called The Citadel of Forgotten Myths. And by far, it is, in my view, much better than this novel, which is called The Revenge of the Rose. I also have The Skraeling Tree, but I didn't enjoy that. I have it in paperback. This is the Grafton A format paperback, the British edition. The cover illustration is by Robert Gould, who also did this illustration. Beautiful cover, by the way. And I didn't enjoy this as much as I enjoyed the early novels and Citadel of Forgotten Myths. And you can see here, this is the paperback, a format paperback, and it's the first impression, and it looks to be like the first edition. Nice, bold lettering, which makes it comfortable to read, comfortable to the eyes. It doesn't have quite the energy. It doesn't have quite the energy, but has some of the action. The action is often left to the climax of the novel. All right, so that's that. This is the first, I guess, of The Revenge of the Rose. Beautiful cover. Anyway, so I thoroughly enjoyed the Elric Saga, Part 1 and Part 2. And I'm going to eventually reread this because I enjoyed that. It's a great depiction of Elric. All right, so don't know what else to add without giving you some spoilers, but Michael Moorcock is probably one of the top writers of sword and sorcery fiction. For my money, he's much better, in my view, and more in the spirit of the Conan adventures than I would say Fritz Leiber is. You may disagree, but I think Leiber doesn't, although he appreciates the heritage of sword and sorcery novels, that the sword and sorcery that was created by people like C.L. Moore and Robert E. Howard. I think Elric of Melniboné, as by Michael Moorcock, takes it a little deeper and a little further, and really writing style, I would say he's closer, as is Carl Edward Wagner, closer to the Robert E. Howard tradition than I would say Fritz Leiber. Fritz Leiber, Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser stories almost appear comedic at times, which is fine if you enjoy that. But I think, for my money, Moorcock is more within the tradition of, as I said, Robert E. Howard, C.L. Moore, H.P. Lovecraft, and Carl Edward Wagner. And anyway, I don't want to say any more about that. I thoroughly enjoyed I've always enjoyed, and I've kept this book, as I said, since I first read it years ago. And so I hope you enjoyed this little presentation on Elric Saga Part 2. And if you did, remember that thumbs up thing, and I appreciate the comments, so feel free. And please continue to subscribe if you want to see more of this content of my library. I am currently approaching and reading, I shouldn't say approaching, I'm reading Part 3, which is really the Fortress of Pearl, but it has that type of slow pacing that you see in Revenge of the Rose. Whereas this one, it reveals a lot about the backstory of the Melnibonéans, and it leads into an excellent and respectful to and true to the Elric character, truer more than I would say Revenge of the Rose is. All right, so thanks everyone again for watching. Okay, bye.